So just to introduce Michele, Michele is a captain of industry in Australia, represents a number of our science and research bodies, and also has directorships across the private sector. So it's very useful to have a representative of the board of the CSIRO and a chancellor of a university and a chairman of Meat and Livestock Australia, amongst other things. So with that context, Michele, having spent a few days meeting a number of the different participants in the ecosystem in the Netherlands, what do you think is the fundamental difference and perhaps opportunity in that difference that you're seeing in the Netherlands that we could perhaps bring back to Australia?
So if I talk about it in the context of the funding system and the mechanism with MLA, so the research and development corporations are funded by compulsory levies in different forms from producers and growers. So for instance, in meat and livestock, every time an animal, we look after beef, sheep and goats, every time a cow or a steer is transacted, MLA gets $5. The federal government also matches that dollar for dollar when we do research and development projects. We also collect a marketing levy, and the marketing levy is focused on not only understanding consumer insights globally, but entering into free trade agreements and understanding how we can export our product. Not all of the research and development corporations have market access levy, but majority of them do. So if I look at the model that is the research and development corporations, we receive those levies from the government. We then contract out our R&D. None of the research and development corporations actually do R&D. They look for how they will progress their industry. So if I look at the red meat industry, we have a red meat industry strategic plan, and the research and development and market access work that we fund is about delivering that for our producers, our processors, and for the consumers in the country. So that means that we're funding both research and CSIRO. So CSIRO is a government agency that does industrial research as well as blue sky research. It gets funding from the research and development corporations to do some of that work in food and ag. What I think I've seen here that we could learn from is that when we've had presentations, they talk about the university partners, the industry partners, and we don't normally do that. You would, if you went to a presentation, you would very rarely hear someone say, this university is working with us or another university is working with us. I think our issue is that we have too many universities, and that it's very difficult in the Australian system to know where to go to get something done. You actually need to know somebody in the system. So I think the 9.8 billion that Australians spend in R&D could actually be more focused through what we call the growth centres and you call the top sectors. So we have a similar model in Australia, the top sector model that you have here, except that it's not as well organised, it's not as well funded, and I think we need to consolidate where you go to get your research.
Yep.
We need to understand specialisation, which is, I think, the key competitive advantage that I see here.
Absolutely. And if you were a Dutch researcher or innovator in the crowd tonight, Michele, and you're interested in collaborating with an Australian research and development corporation or CSIRO or a university or an industry partner, what would the one piece of advice you'd give them be?
Talk to somebody here. We do have a man from Austrade here who's in Germany. There he is up the back. We do have government offices. You could go to the Austrade office. Yep. They would then come to us. Yep. That's the one thing that's not clear in Australia, where you would go for what information. It's more about who you know. Yep. But the Austrade offices are actually trying to direct the traffic. I think the rural development corporations are a really good place to start, because they can then direct you to the people in that sector who might be able to deliver the research for you, or in fact, if you want to look at market access.
Perfect. So thank you, Michele. Can I just ask the Rural Development Corporation people that are in the room tonight from Australia, if you could just put your hand up, just to make it a bit easier. So for the Dutch people in the room who want to have a conversation, these are the representatives from our meat and livestock, grains and horticulture sectors.
So we have 15 of them, so you have to be very careful where you go to get what information. But we are working more closely together. In the last 2 years, we've worked more closely together to develop a 2050 vision for the food and agribusiness sector and the role that we play. So if you came into one of us and we were the wrong one, we would send you to the right one.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Michele.
Thank
you
you
very much.
Thank you.